Hello, Tyler Cruz here, also known as Always Dizzy. I am back with my I have to look here, round six game from the 2025 New Year's Open, which I finished about 3 weeks ago. So it's kind of funny how long these videos are going, but there were a lot of rounds. And yeah, so as a recap, if we're assuming that you have watched the previous videos in this series. If you haven't, well, start on video one. So for the first day, I lost all three games. So yeah, I had a score of 0 after the first day, and then on the second day, I managed to win rounds 4 and round 5. So I managed to crawl back up a little bit. And so this was the third game of the second day, round 6. And I was paired up against Austin Beech, who I hadn't seen before or hadn't played. He lives on the same island as I do, but like a couple hours away. Um, yeah, not much more to be said than that. He was rated 1585 at the time, and I think I don't. Do I have his age in here? No, I don't know. If I had to guess his age, I would say maybe like 17 or maybe 17 years old, something like that. It's kind of hard to guess. Um, okay, let's jump right in. I played e4, if the software will work for me, and he played e5, and I played knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and we have the Ruy Lopez on board. He played a6, played bishop a4, knight f6, castles b5, bishop b3. And here I was wondering, as I always do, if I was finally going to see our Marshall, the Marshall attack. So I think I've only ever faced it once before in a tournament, and this was back in 2003. One of my first tournaments ever, and I think it was also the last tournament before I quit chess for 15 years. um, and I lost that game. I lost that game. Um, Back in those days, I knew zero theory, literally zero. Like, I knew maybe two or three moves. Like, yeah, it was crazy. Um, but yeah, so in this game, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked there. But in this game, I thought maybe it's going to be the first time I see the Marshall in well 22 years. Wow, and I'm pretty booked up with against a Marshall, but it's always a very scary opening to play against. So I was curious. But he played bishop c5, and so this would not be the Marshall variation. If anyone is curious, which you may not be, is, well, it can be transposed in a number of different ways. But yeah, bishop e7, rook e1, castles c3, d5, ed, knight takes, and then this is where white can get the pawn. This is like the Marshall gambit. Did I say Marshall attack? I don't know if it's the same thing, really. But yeah, so white can win this pawn, but it comes at quite a cost because black can get this major attack against white here with his bishops aiming towards the king side and the queen. And it's really sharp, very dangerous. Yeah, but as I said, my opponent played bishop c5, which is a archangel. There's like a neo archangel, like semi archangels. I forget if this is like the main one or not. It's basically in the Roy Lopez when black plays bishop c5 after like a6 and b5. So for some reason, a lot of young players play this against me, especially the really young players, like under 12 years old. But I actually do very well against it, and it doesn't seem to cause me problems. So I was pretty content to see it. And I played c3. He played d6. I am kind of confused, like why people play the Archangel, because against e5, black has so many great openings to play. It might be black's best defense, and the Archangel is not really one of them, but a lot of people play it. But it does provide some dynamic positions. It's not so dry, so maybe that's why. And he played d6, played d4, and he played bishop b6. So here I thought for 6 minutes, again, the time control was 50 plus 5. And if you look at the position, and feel free to pause the video to see if you can spot anything here. And it might look like white has a combination here to win a pawn, but, and I'll go down the line in a minute, but I'll just read my notes here. But it's actually only equal, and black will get his pawn back and active pieces. And I spent a long time here because I was trying to remember if I was right about that, that black gets adequate compensation if we get the pawn, if we do that combination to get the pawn, or if I could just win a pawn here. So I was trying to remember and calculate, yeah, if I was correct or not. And yeah, so let me go down the line. So if white plays d takes e5, knight takes e5. Sorry, let me take a step here. It's kind of weird when you're recording a video or streaming and you're not talking like with somebody else. At least for me, my voice gets so strained because if you're talking to somebody else, they're going to talk as well. And then you get a break in between talking. So you're not talking nonstop. But when you're making a video, especially, yeah, you're talking nonstop. And it really wears out my voice. So anyway, so after d takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, d takes, and queen takes, king takes, bishop takes f7. It just looks straightforward, right? That white wins a pawn. And this is what I was calculating. But there's a hidden agenda here from black if they know the follow-up. Which again is sorry, oh crap. Spoiled it. But if d takes, knight takes, d takes, queen takes, king takes, and then we take on f7. After rook f8 attacking our bishop, and bishop, well, first of all, if we go to d5, there's knight takes d5, e takes d5, bishop b7, and this is equal. Black did not regain their pawn, but they're going to get it next move because we can't hang on to the d5 pawn anymore because rook d1 allows black to converge on f2, and there's no other way to defend that pawn. And black has the bishop pair, black's active, right? Yeah, so if bishop b3 instead, then black has knight takes e4, bishop d5 looks like it's good for white, but again, black just has f2 available. So knight takes f2, and now black wins the game, or black's completely winning because of discoveries and so forth. So that's why this whole taking the pawn, this little combination where it looks like you're doing fine after you win a pawn on f7, it's actually not really great for white. And I was also thinking, because there's another opening, and I couldn't remember if it was this one or not. There's another opening where it's very similar, same exact or very similar idea, but the difference is the knight coming in to e4. But I think that's a slightly different variation. Yeah, so after that think, I ultimately played h3. Just any move that moved my position forward other than taking on e5. And I think I might have surprised my opponent when I played this, or at least when I didn't take on e5, because and again, I'm totally speculating here, but he didn't look too happy that I didn't take the pawn. And then after I played h3, he thought for a couple minutes. And I remember here too, before I played h3, he actually got up from his seat and walked around a bit, because I'm thinking he thought I'm going to go for that little combination, and he thought I just needed time to finish my calculations. But no, I was just double checking in my mind that I couldn't do that. Okay, moving forward here. So I played h3, and then he castled. Played bishop g5. Just wanted to develop my bishop, pin his knight, and it looked reasonable enough to me. He played h6. And here I gave bishop h4 some very serious thought, knowing that he could play g5, and then I was considering sacking on g5. And Stockfish 17 says that it's actually sound to do that, but it was too risky for me when I wasn't sure about it. And I'll show you a line. I think I have one here. Yeah, so bishop h4, g5, knight takes g5, h takes g5, bishop takes king g7, knight d2, bringing in another attacker to help attack on the king side. But after queen e8, it's equal. So this was playable. But even here, like, I don't, like, I'm playing a piece down, and I'm not really an attacking player. I'm not an attacking player. So, like, yeah, we have queen f3, I guess, and stuff. But yeah, it was too risky. I stand behind my decision. So instead of where was I here? Yeah, so instead of bishop h4, I went bishop e3. He took on d4, and I recaptured with the pawn. He played rook e8, adding more pressure down the e-file and on e4. So I defended it with knight bd2. He played knight a5, played bishop c2. Again, defending e4 because it's under attack twice. He attacks it a third time, bishop b7. He won't he won't relent. I played b4, and he played knight c6. So I remember thinking he was going to play knight c4. And I forget what my plan was. I think I was probably going to take it. Wait. Oh yeah, I think I might have been considering taking it and then d5. Well, no, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't going to take it. I forget what I had planned exactly. But yeah, he played knight c6. I played queen b1, just defending e4 again, because if he moves his knight, I'm going to still have a problem with him attacking. Oh yeah, sorry. And also I'm defending b4. So it was kind of a 2-in-1 move here. And he played knight d7, which is a little clumsy and slow. Like what's the point of this? This was strange. Yeah, I'm curious what he was planning here. I don't know, unless he was trying to reroute it somehow, but it didn't. I think he didn't quite know how to proceed here. I don't know. I think he could just be more patient. Maybe even just like queen d7, bring in the other rook, and then put the queen on a8. This could be under attack again. That could be one idea. I don't know. Maybe he can break on a5. Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, this doesn't seem quite right. I played a4. Also, it's hard for me to come up with a whole lot of ideas here, but I'm just trying to get more space and open up the position. He played knight e7, which does open up his light squared bishop. And I played rook e1. He played rook c8. I played knight b3 here, which was an inaccuracy. Stockfish 17, yeah, didn't love it. But I'm not 100% sure why. But I think it might be that I think the computer wants me to attack on the king side here. That's kind of where my bishops are pointing. And that's where his king is. So I think that was the plan that the computer wanted. Yeah, because if I attack on the queen side, there's not a whole lot going on there, and he's got a lot of pieces. And yeah, I probably should have focused more on the king side. He played knight f8, still reconfiguring his knights. I played bishop d3, just attacking b5. He played c6, defending it. I took on b5. C takes. Knight a5, just grabbing more space. Bishop a8. I went back to knight b3, and yeah, there because well, here, because for one thing, I don't think I was worried about bishop a5 because I can just take with the rook. But then I might have been concerned about knight b6, knight c6 rather. Yeah, because then after, if I move that knight to knight b3, then he can take on b4. So I think I might have been worried about knight c6 there. So I went back. He repeated. And so effectively, unless he's just repeating for the sake of repeating, he's kind of offering me a draw here. And in this tournament, you could not offer a draw until after move 30. Like you can do a threefold, but you can't agree to a draw, like verbally or by agreement. So I took the draw. No. So I played queen b2. No, I'm not interested in a draw. He is lower rated by like 109 points. So yeah, I don't want to draw, and I am white. Yeah, wanted to play, and it's just, I still had 3 losses the previous day, so I was trying to make up for that. He played knight eg6, and then I played d5 here, which was the best move. Just cutting off his light squared bishop. His light squared bishop is looking really silly now. It doesn't have any scope at all. And I know that I gave him the knight d5 square, but I felt it was not a problem because I can just, if he goes there, I can just trade on it. And then if he takes with a pawn, then I have a passed pawn. If he takes with a rook, well, that rook is not safe there. And his remaining bishop would be even worse. Sorry. I'm reading my notes here. Yeah, and then while black can trade these bishops, his remaining bishop here, which would be his light squared bishop, would be really, really bad. And lastly, I create a pivot square, and that was kind of the main reason I did it. Well, the main reason was I wanted to kill his light squared bishop, but the second reason I did it was because of the d4 square. It's a nice pivot point for my knights or my bishop or my queen. Just a beautiful little pivot square. And yeah, so I thought that was a good move, and it turned out to be. He played knight e5, which, again, it seems natural. It seems like, oh, I just gave you a nice square to go to, but positionally, it's not great because for the reasons I just said. And I think this even leads to a eventual tempo loss for black because, again, he can't keep his rook there. So he took it with a rook, and then I made a mistake here, according to the engine. Well, the engine's always right. So I made a mistake here, period. I played rook ac1, and it's not like a blunder, but the computer says that knight d4 was much better. I didn't actually include a line here kind of showcasing why, but I assume it's just because the computer doesn't want to trade bishops here. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head here. Yeah. So anyways, I played rook ac1. Oh yeah, the other thing to mention though is at this point in the game, I only had 13 minutes left. I only had 13 minutes. My opponent had 17. Otherwise, yeah, I might have played knight d4, but I was a bit pressed for time, so I wasn't thinking too long on each move here. Rook ac1, he traded. Queen takes c1. Then he traded bishops, and I took with the rook. I'm trying to remember why. Oh yeah, because if I take it with a queen, there's bishop takes d5. Wait, what? Yeah, his bishop takes d5. So that's why I took with a rook. And he went knight d7. Now I played knight d4. Eyeing this beautiful f5 square. And he played queen b6, which was a mistake because it allowed me to play knight f5, which is what I did. And suddenly, I had a great attacking position. The knight, the rook, and the queen here are such a great combo and are eerily similar to what I had. Well, maybe minus the queen, but very similar to what I had the previous game. If you can go back and skip to like the last third of the game, and you'll see a similar idea with my knight advanced like this and my rook kind of with a rook lift. Very similar to the previous game. It was kind of funny. And I remember thinking that at this point in the game, I was like, whoa, this looks familiar. He played king h7. And I went rook g3. And he went rook takes f5. And I remember at the time that I was a little surprised to see this because at the time I thought it was an overreaction, but it's actually the best move according to the computer. Because at the time I thought he had g5. I thought he was going to play g5 here, but I missed rook takes g5. So if g5, rook takes g5, h takes g5, queen takes g5, and then we're threatening to give checkmate. And if he goes rook takes f5, we have queen takes f5 check through the fork here. So king g8, and then we can just take on d7. And it's still a bit of work, but we're up. I guess we're only up one pawn, but it's same colored bishops. Our queen is better. His king is vulnerable, and we have a passed pawn in the h file. So it still would have been work here, but white is clearly winning. Yeah, but yeah, so he took on f5, and well, obviously I took it, and he took on d5. Here I played queen e3. So Oh my god, I make this mistake. I make this type of mistake so often. When I get low on the clock, like I often have a good, like a winning position even, um, and then I trade queens when I'm low on the clock because I'm so scared of my opponent getting counterplay with his queen, and I think it's too much to account for and to look out for. So here, I wasn't sure. I was like, should I keep the queens on or not? I am up the exchange. I'm up the exchange. It should be enough. Like if I get his queen off, I don't need to worry about things so much. But yeah, this was a mistake. The computer recommends queen c8 or f6. So queen c8, just kind of coming in from behind, attacking his knight. We can, I think, maybe later on, maybe go to f8 because we're threatening mate here. Yeah, or f6 right away was the other move the computer suggested. It's a discovered check, and if g6, I think still then queen c8, and then we're threatening to like come in from behind here. But yeah, I went queen e3, and my opponent didn't miss his opportunity. He took it, which was the best move, I believe, and I took with the rook. I know that I could have undoubled my pawns, but then my rook gets very awkward, and I want activity in the endgame. So yeah, I wanted my rook active, and so this was the better move. He went knight e5, and I made a little inaccuracy here. I went bishop e4. I just wanted to simplify here. But this allowed bishop c4. And then I made a mistake here. I went bishop b7, which is just sloppy. Because this allowed the very simple knight d3. And, well, he's attacking b4. And I can't save it. And then I blundered. So things were going downhill quickly here. I'm just so bad under time pressure. I played f6. And yeah, my notes say here that I had 5 minutes left. Remember, only a 5-second increment. So that adds to my anxiety of the clock. And the problem with f6 is that after g6, which is what he played, I can no longer. Oh wait, sorry. Was this right? Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's right, right? I'm just reading my notes here. Okay, because I know that what I should have done here was take on a6 while I could have, but I played f6, and then after g6. So I think maybe I didn't write this in here. Yeah, I didn't write this in my notes. So I think he also made a mistake here when he played g6. Yeah, so he should have just taken on b4 because then he defends a6. And I'm not really threatening anything here. Like there's nothing here. There's this check, but he can just go to g8, and I'm really not threatening anything. So yeah, I just kind of got confused there, and I kind of because I was also looking at like the reason I played it is because I saw bishop e4 check, right, winning a piece. So I thought that worked, but yeah, he could just take on b4, and then I would have been. So that would have apparently been okay. I do have that line to show you. So after knight takes b4, if if bishop e4 check, king g8, whoops, king g8, then he's fine. And if after knight takes b4, f takes g7, and king takes g7, rook a3, a5, rook takes a5, king f6, my advantage here is minimal. And I'm up the exchange for a pawn, but he does have a passed pawn, and his king is more active. This would have been very stressful to play out. So I never should have allowed the possibility of that happening. And here I should have just taken on a6. But again, I was low on the clock here. I had 5 minutes left. But yeah, he played g6. And since the game was slipping away at this point, because I realized when I played it, I realized I should have taken on a6 instead. I stopped recording my moves here. Because again, once you get down to 5 minutes, if you only have a 5-second increment, you're not required to write down the moves. So I actually did stop recording the moves here, but I'm pretty confident that I remembered the rest of the game correctly. Yeah, like I forget when it was. It might have been the same day or the next day, but I put I wrote I've recorded the rest of the games on the rest of the game here. So yeah, here I wasn't going to let it happen again. So I took on a6. He took on b4, bishop b7, and here I was expecting knight d3, which was the best move by far. But my opponent only had 6 minutes, so we were both, a little pressured here. But yeah, so he played d5 instead, which I did not consider, but it scared me about the same, because that pawn is running. That pawn is running. Yeah, so that surprised me. And I went rook e7, threatening to take on f7 and or come behind the d pawn. And he pushed the d pawn. And sorry, I wasn't threatening to take because the bishop. I was just trying to come from behind. And I went rook d7. And at this point, each side probably had around 2 minutes. And again, this is 2 minutes over the board with virtually no increment. So this is, yeah, very short on the clock here. And I remember at this point in the game, a few people watching our game, like standing around and almost like even pointing at it and like whispering. Including 2 players from the same island city as my opponent. So compatriots of my opponent, they were probably rooting for him. And they seemed quite interested in the ending, because it is an interesting ending. And plus, they were watching the game for a while, and I was completely winning a few moves ago, and then I was letting it slip. And so it looked like he was going to get the win here. Or sorry, not get the win, but it looked like it was looking like an upset. And so they were watching closely. And I wasn't sure how to assess this position. I mean, you guys are looking at it right now. What do you guys think? It's not so clear. It's complicated. I think it's complicated. It's not clear cut. And I just thought that, yeah, my opponent is looking to create an upset here. Because again, I was just winning easily before, and what's going on here? He's about to queen, and yeah, so he played d3, and I played f4. I wanted my king to be able to come in there and stop the pawn, and he played g5, which was a critical blunder and a very strange move to play. But he must have seen some ghosts here. I remember at the time when he played it, just thinking, oh my God, I got lucky again. And which is, again, it's unusual for me. I normally don't get lucky. Like, like where my opponent's blundered. It's rare in my games. And I was just thinking like, wow, I can't believe it. Like I got lucky here. Um, like the previous round, like if you remember my previous round, I got lucky there. I played a move to kind of weasel my way out of a losing position. And I thought I just got lucky again here. However, Stockfish 17 actually says that I was winning over like for the last three moves. White was still winning, but it was still scary. Like it was still scary when he played G5. It's just I'm just completely winning here. Yeah, so I went Bishop E4 check, King G8, and then Rook D8 checkmate. Whew, so I got another win. That was 3 wins in a row after my terrible start with 3 losses in a row. So it was pretty weird. 3 losses in a row and then 3 wins in a row. But it was bittersweet because my last 2 games, well, I mean, I guess this one I was winning, but I wasn't sure, because I shouldn't have let him ever take on B4. Knight takes B4. And again, at the point in this game here, I wasn't sure. This was rocky. I was really uncertain. Now this one would have been cleaner if I hadn't played F6. If I hadn't played F6, it's a pretty clean win the whole way through. And I remember after the game, asking my opponent if he wanted to go analyze the game, which I don't too often ask my opponents. And he did not look happy when I asked him, and he shook his head no, like a definite no. Yeah, so he he was not happy. But honestly, I do not blame him one bit, because the last thing I want to do after I lose a game is to analyze the game with my opponent. It's the last thing I want to do. So I completely understand. And the only reason I asked him is because he was a little slow in gathering his stuff, like water bottle and all of that. And sometimes when players do that, I kind of feel like, oh, maybe they want to analyze the game. And I was also curious what he thought about the opening. Remember that whole opening? Well, I'll show you here if I can jump there. This whole thing. I was curious if he knew about this and if he was expecting me to take on F7. If he didn't know about it, I was going to show him. So I was curious about that as well. That's why I asked him. Yeah. So again, after this game, I was at 3 out of 6, which is good because I was holding my own. I was at 50% in the premier section where there's multiple title players. So I was feeling quite happy, obviously. So it was a great day 2, winning all my games. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back with round 7 in 2 or 3 days from now. So stay tuned for that. Got it right here in front of me. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this game. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, stay tuned for the next round. Thanks.